Psychedelics Today. Welcome back. Thanks again for tuning in. Today on the show, we have another underground MDMA therapist going by the name of Selena. And we recorded this one on the 5th of April, and it was great. We had the ability to bring up some really interesting stuff from the older gentleman's interview, the first MDMA, called it Confessions. So that was cool. But yeah, this person has been doing the work for about a year and has seen incredible results that we get into in the show. And it's really promising. With a couple anecdotes, you can see just how substantial the changes in this therapy modality can be. And talk therapy alone really just pales in comparison. She does somatic work, kind of like what Kyle is going to school for, and somatic therapy. So using body stuff, voice, massage, movement, stuff like that. There's probably a lot more that I don't even know about. I'm not the one going to grad school for that. But, really interesting therapy modalities, and they seem very relevant to us because our breathwork techniques really seem to fit into that mold quite well. So I hope you enjoy this one. Let us know what you think. Reach out. You have any questions, maybe we can facilitate asking about that. There's been a lot of questions coming in about how do I find a therapist that's willing to work with me. I don't have a good answer. If you go international, you can find stuff legally. But it's, not MDMA, obviously. And unfortunately, perhaps a place where this stuff is decriminalized, like Portugal, might be a solution. So, perhaps check that out. But this is something that we're going to keep developing and trying to figure out, because I know there's a lot of people out there that need this urgently. They're on the brink of suicide or, a divorce or losing their job and their whole life falling apart. And this therapy is maybe one of the few things that could really help them out. That's it for the intro. A couple announcements. We are still making available our psychedelic self-care and integration class. You can find it at psychedelicstoday.teachable.com, or you go to our website and there's an online class link up top. And people really loved it. And we hope to really help people stay safe this festival season. It is springtime, and it's soon going to be summertime, and there's going to be a fair amount of drug use. So what better way to prepare than to make sure you and your friends are safe by getting educated? How to test, where to go to find more information, how to stay safe when using, if you plan to use. And on the other side, as it's springtime and it's breathwork season, I have 4 workshops on the books up here in Breckenridge, Colorado, single day breathwork workshops. And they are on May 21, June 4, July 8, and August 8. Kyle has one on the books right now for April 18. I'm sure we're going to have more scheduled soon. And he's out of New Jersey, northwestern New Jersey. Dream Shadow in Vermont, which is where Kyle and I got trained to do breath work. They're having a bunch of great workshops, typically weekend retreats. There's, I think, one 5-day on the books. Those dates are May 19 through 21, July 7 through 9, August 18 through 23. And there's others too, just later. I just didn't want to read them all. And Boston Holotropic, some of my good friends that I've done work with, are having one in Maine, I think near Portland, Maine, April 21 and 22, and then one right outside Boston in Belmont on June 2 and 3. So if you're interested in breath work, really, feel free to check us out and see what we're up to. The ones in Boston are holotropic. Dream Shadow is holotropic. Me and Kyle are calling ours Dream Shadow transpersonal breath work, though the method looks quite identical, and it only really different. The difference is there that we have different teachers. Ours was kind of a mentor model rather than Groff transpersonal training. We've been doing the work for a while, so we'd love to share it with you. Thanks again for tuning in to Psychedelics Today. We hope you enjoy this second interview with a different MDMA therapist. See you on the other side. Bye-bye.
All right, welcome to Psychedelics Today with your hosts Kyle and Joe. Today we're here with another underground MDMA therapist, and we're really excited to chat with them. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so could you give us a little background on how you got into this?
I always say these kind of things just found me. I didn't actually choose to follow this line of work. psychedelics have been a huge part of my own growth and my own healing and development, spiritually, emotionally, physically, everything. I tried psilocybin when I was 19, and at that point, my whole world was changed. And when I was about 23, I had like a really big opening, like spiritual experience with psilocybin as well. And at that point, I had been an alcoholic for several years. And after that journey, I woke up to the fact that life actually feels good and I don't need to continue to intoxicate myself. And also like realize that alcohol is a depressant. No wonder I'm waking up every day depressed, and made all these connections and have changed my life. And then after that really big like spiritual awakening, I made a promise to myself and to the world that I would offer this like guidance and assistance to people who are on the path or looking for the path. And because I had felt really alone, I had like all these experiences that I didn't know like who to talk to. I was in Pennsylvania at the time, so I didn't have, I tried to reach out to my yoga teacher and my chiropractor, but none of them really knew the realm of spiritual awakening. So at that point, I had made a promise to myself to offer this support to other young people on the path. And so after that, I went to grad school and I got my counseling degree. And now I have that, and I've been working for about a year, working underground with MDMA, psilocybin, and LSD. And it's going amazingly. The way that I came along the work specifically is I did my own MDMA-assisted therapy. That was the way that I first got connected in this world. And through that, my depression got a lot less, and I was able to move through childhood trauma and things that I had felt sort of stuck in that, regular therapy wasn't really helping me move through. Like I was having all these releases in regular therapy, but I was still waking up depressed every day. And then when I started doing the MDMA assisted therapy for the first time in my life, I experienced relief and I wasn't waking up depressed anymore. So after that, I started mentoring with a man who does this work also underground, and he taught me the ways. And I always say the medicine picked me, because after the experience I had with it, I felt like it was my ethical obligation to offer the highest quality of care to people. And this was what I believe to be it.
And I'm kind of curious, how did you, when you were doing the MDMA assisted therapy, how did you find somebody? Just through like an odd connection, or were you were doing it with a therapist, or were you kind of doing it on your own?
No, my regular talk therapist referred me to a man who works underground in the area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's a network. It's a connection.
Yeah. And what was it like going through grad school, having these experiences and developing those skills as a counselor? Just like having this background with working with psychedelics and then wanting to help people, how was that experience on going through grad school and kind of strengthening those skills for working with the MDMA and these other substances? While
I was going through grad school, I hadn't had this firm intention that I'm going to work underground, that I'm going to work with these medicines. I had these personal experiences that created openings, and I also in grad school started doing the research that MAPS is doing, and that's happening all over the world with psychedelic medicines. And once I started looking at the research and finding how much it's helping people in a profound, real way, it was like something clicked inside of me, and it made sense. And then I started asking my real therapist about it, and I was like, hey, I'm interested in MDMA assisted therapy. How would I go about learning how to do that? How would I go about doing that. And she's like, have you ever done it yourself? And I was like, no. She's like, okay, so that's the first step. And so I went and I started doing it myself. And then whenever I was having these incredible experiences with that underground therapist, then I started bringing it to my classes and bringing it up in conversation in my groups and being more open about it, because now that I had experienced like MDMA assisted therapy and I knew sort of what it was more personally, I felt confident using my voice and advocating for these methods. And definitely there was like a lack in the grad school of talking about psychedelic medicines, talking about the impact that they have. Even it's a transpersonal program, and like it still was not as much as I would want to see.
It's like the
here.
elephant in the room in transpersonal degree programs. It seems like everybody wants to talk about psychedelics, but for some reason they do not as much as they feel obligated to or want to.
Yeah, it's like if the school is like torn, because if they want to get accredited and want to do like the federal thing, they have to kind of be, in the closet about psychedelics. I mean, it's the pioneer, it's the frontier of mental health, so we might as well start including it soon.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm curious how those solo sessions went for you when you were doing it alone. Was it difficult? Was it scary, or can you tell us any stories about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first time I tripped, I was 19, and I had, I'm an immigrant. I'm from Ukraine, so I had a lot of like shame and stuff around being Ukrainian, being foreign, and I had denied a lot of aspects of my identity through I think it was like the programming of high school and middle school, just like the kids teasing. And so I had suppressed a lot of parts of myself, a lot of like the ancestry, a lot of my heritage, a lot of my language. And when I took psilocybin, I took a full 3.5 dose and had a really bad trip because all of those ways that I was limiting myself, that I was denying my voice, denying my truth, came full circle, and I started looping in them, and I was like, just get me out of here. So yeah, the first time I did it, it was a really bad trip. And then when I was 23, I did it for my birthday, and that was more like a mystical experience. It wasn't as scary. It wasn't as profoundly terrifying as the first one, but it definitely showed me, that I was drinking a lot and the impact that alcohol has on consciousness. It also brought me back to my body and this deep connection with, wow, being alive actually feels good. What am I doing seeking outside of myself constantly? Seeking drugs, seeking pleasure, shopping, all of these things, trying to fill this void that can be filled with just being present with myself and being alive in my body.
That's a wonderful piece of wisdom right there. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm curious too. I think when I was trying to ask you about grad school too, you said you kind of had this message to work with these substances and share your experiences with other people. Did you have a vision on going to grad school and picking up counseling? Because, some people, they get that message, and maybe nowadays when shamanism is a really hot thing and people want to just start extending this work, you kind of took a professional route and decided to get a degree and get some training under your belt before kind of giving guidance. So did you have that goal?
Yeah, I've always been a healer, I've always, in high school, I took a class on psychology. So I've always been fascinated with the dysfunction that I experienced in my own family system and the chaos that ensued when I went to college and started acting out the ways that, my upbringing, shaped me and just started raging and, just being really angry and rageful and almost abusive and getting myself in abusive situations and just continuing to manifest the pattern from my childhood. And so that's when, I I've always been fascinated with like dysfunction and how do I find peace within my own mind and my own organism. And naturally, like, I've always attracted people that tell me all of their problems and need guidance, support. And yeah, it's definitely like been, I don't know, like my life's calling is to help people, that's for sure. And then whenever I started like going to grad school and like learning about myself more and learning about, you know, how to help people clinically, and the medicine work just kind of went like hand in hand with it. And it made sense to me. I was like, oh yeah, like this is what I'm here to do. And then once I started stepping in the direction of the psychedelic world, all of these doors started opening. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is what it feels like when you're in alignment with your life's purpose and yourself. And I'm like, I guess I don't have a choice. I kept joking, like, when I first started this work, I was like, I don't have a choice. Like, it just took me, like, I don't have a choice. It chose me. Definitely, like, as soon as I opened that door, it just flooded.
Yeah, that's the calling, right? The more you try and escape from it, something just keeps opening up, and you can't really do anything about it sometimes.
Yeah, it's like, well, I could sit with people for an hour a week and we could just like do baby steps, or I could give them MDMA and they could change their whole life around in 6 hours.
How many sessions do you usually find it takes to see substantial movement in somebody? Is it usually a single session, or?
You know, everyone is different. So there have been people that they need one session and they've never tried the medicine and it changes their whole life and that's it. For most people, I would say about like 2 or 3 sessions. For some people, 4. And then I would say like 3 sessions with MDMA and then psilocybin, like moving up like that. But yeah, everyone is so different and different ages, different lifestyles. You know, some people are way closer to their own truth than others. Some people are like still really far from their own truth and they have a long way to go to get back to themselves. So they need a couple sessions to come and basically, I call it like reprogramming the brain from fear and the fear-based reactions like fight, flight, back into love and like relaxation. And it's definitely effective to have several sessions for people to be able to integrate those kind of experiences and be able to bring them home when they're not on the medicine and like invoke that state of relaxation and love when they're not on the medicine.
If you are doing multiple sessions for somebody, what's the spacing like? Like, is it a couple weeks, a month?
I definitely don't let people come sooner than like 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
And naturally, it usually unfolds about like 3 weeks to a month. If someone's in a real crisis situation, I'll do 2 weeks. But pretty much, yeah, like some people wait a couple months, you know, everyone is so different. That's the thing. It's like, there's no average. There's no like, oh, this is what everyone does. It's
right.
totally authentic and different.
Well, do you have it like a programmatic way you work with it, or is it just kind of like an intuitive approach?
I mean, I'm always like changing my protocol and evolving it based on just guidance I get and people I talk to. And right now, I have a pretty strict rule that like right when they take the medicine, well, they come in and get comfortable. Usually they have like several intake sessions. There's one intake and then a couple like just in-person sessions, so they can come and just hang out in the space, like feel it out. So it's when they're coming for the medicine work, it's not a total shock. They're not like in a totally new space. And then some people like to draw like tarot cards. I have these beautiful cards that, you know, people sometimes want to get some guidance on like the session. And then then they'll take the medicine, and the only mantra I really give is surrender to whatever needs to happen. And then now I have people lay down for the first hour and we don't speak, and they have a personal experience. They cover their eyes. There's music playing. And I mean, of course they can, if they get scared on the come up or something, I'm available. I'm sitting right there. But I find that the first wave of the medicine has like a tremendous amount of information. Sometimes that first wave actually contains the entire session that we're going to work with. So I've found in the past that if people are talking to me through that first wave, we sometimes miss really like important bulks of the session. So yeah, but after that, after an hour, then they can take a boost. The first dose is like 135, 140. And then I'll give like an 80 milligram boost if they want it. And
this is for MDMA?
Then we can talk. Yeah, this is for MDMA. Yeah, everything changes with psilocybin and LSD.
What type of dose do you use for that if you're working with that?
It depends. You know, it's if the person wants to have like a death experience. One of my clients had like a request to have like a death experience. So I gave him like, yeah. So I gave him 4.7 and he got there. And then with LSD, the guy requested to do 400 mics. So he did that much. I've had people do like 2 grams of mushrooms and have a great like trauma release experience. And then, yeah, like 200 of LSD. It varies. I let the people decide that, you know. For MDMA, it's more rigid, and I have like the dose and whatever. But with psychedelics, it's more, you know, where do you want to go? What kind of experience do you want to have? And usually the people who I'm sitting for are very experienced with that realm, and it's not like the guy who wanted the death experience. That was his first time with psilocybin, but
wow.
Otherwise, everyone has. Right.
It's almost like Terrence McKenna, 5 grams in silent darkness.
Right.
Yeah, goodness gracious. So I'm a little curious.
Right.
So we just spoke to a guy recently who runs some mushroom retreats in Jamaica, and his kind of safety protocol is just kind of like a couple things from the doctor. And I think that's all he requires. How do you handle that kind of like pre-screening process with your patients?
Well, I require that everyone's had like a physical exam within like the past 6 months. So that's how I, with like the physical kind of stuff. But I also like check in on heart conditions and any like psychotropic meds. Like people can't be on SSRIs if they're on, well, pretty much like almost any psychotropic med is going to like lower the effects of MDMA. But I'm most concerned with like serotonin syndrome, and so that's why I screen for the SSRIs. But I found that if people are on like anything, even like antipsychotics or whatever, or like any benzos, any anti-anxieties, like the effects of MDMA are way diminished. So it's like, I'll tell them that, and I'm like, well, like, do you want to waste your money? Do you want to waste this experience? Or, it's up to them at that point.
And do you find that they want to maybe taper off before a session, or?
Yeah, I usually encourage that, to taper off, just because the way I put it is you're definitely going to suffer and it's going to be really tough, but you can continue your life trying to run away from your problems and trying to numb and mask them, or you can suffer really a lot for a couple of weeks, and then you can come for a session and we can face this stuff and you can start to move through it and actually cause transformative change in your life. So if people are ready to embark on the journey of facing themselves, they taper off. And if they don't, then, it's just not the right alignment. It's not, I trust a lot of that. I don't try to force like any clients. I don't try to force, I don't advertise. I don't do any of that. It's sort of like who comes is who needs it. And I'm there and I interview people. It has to be a good fit. If I feel like it's not a good fit between us, I'm going to turn you away. And I'm pretty strict with like who I work with and my intuition and my guidance and all that.
That's really cool. I appreciate that approach. It seems really safe. Do you have any kind of like case studies or examples you'll share once in a while, like success with patients or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. Lots of them. Let me think. Yeah, sure. So I had like the most challenging client of my life probably like 6 months ago, and his friends referred him because he was just struggling with depression, like debilitating depression, right? He can't like get out of bed. He's just like crying all the time, just like cannot like move, can't live his life. And like his friends were just really concerned for him and like, you know, concerned about suicidality and is this person going to be okay? And like the presenting problem he came in with was he fell madly in love with this woman, and she would come and she would sleep over with him, and they would have these deep, deep moments of connection and intimacy. And then in the morning she would leave and be like, I can't do this, like totally cut him off. And it was just like driving him insane. And so he came to me with this like presenting problem. But as I started working with him, we discovered that it's actually, you know, a lot deeper, and it has to do with his own self-worth. And he has like really severe trauma from his childhood. His dad actually like shot himself in the head and killed himself, and his mom took them as he was a teenager, and his mom thought it was some kind of like lesson to teach her kids, so she went and they had an open casket, and my client saw his father's like head blown off. Yeah, like horrible shit. So yeah, that's what this guy's been through. So like his first session, his body goes into trauma response like almost immediately. Like, do you know what that looks like? Should I
kind of a little shaking. It would be cool if you could elaborate.
Yeah, totally. So like if an animal is being chased and they think like they're like running for their life and they think it's safe, so they'll like lay down and then they'll start like twitching and shaking and releasing that. So with like the human body, since we have a brain and it stops our processes and we don't allow our bodies to move all the time, like when people take MDMA, a lot of times that trauma response will come up and they'll start shaking. And a lot of times the voice will, you know, like I'll encourage them to yell and scream and like emote through their voice as well. And yeah, so and also like he went into like very, what's it called? Like prenatal sort of movements, like very baby-like movements. So he thought maybe something happened to him also when he was a baby. I don't know, you know. And so, yeah, so that was his first session. And then, you know, he had like a lot of realizations just about how much he was limiting himself, about how much he, like just didn't love himself at all, basically was letting this woman abuse him because he believed that he deserved it. And then after his second session, he had a really tough time because he battled himself the entire time, like his head, and like just like fighting himself, and like I don't even know how to put it into words. Yeah, basically just like trying to push his body to keep moving, but that was like from his mind, and like his body didn't authentically actually need to move. There was something he was trying to escape. And so when I brought him back to himself, he like was too scared to touch it, and then he left that session with that, like he wasn't able to hold that peace. And after that second session, he got way worse, and I got really nervous because, oh no, like what's going on? And he was like, he was pretty much going psychotic. He's like, who am I? What is this? You know, like just because he hit rock bottom because he had been running away from the ways in which like his suffering was limiting his life so much. And like by doing this work, he had to come face to face with the fact that he had manifested the suffering for himself, basically. And definitely trauma like from childhood and whatnot, but like the attachment to these wounds and his like self-core identity had been so enwrapped in this like, oh, I'm sad, oh, like I'm depressed. And that was how he would get attention from his mom. He would get attention from this woman, was through this identity of being not good enough. And then after that second session, he kind of ripped that identity away, but it left this gaping hole where he was like, well, who am I then? And it's this terrifying place of, I'm not the pain anymore, but I have no clue who I am. So it was this like super tense area where he wasn't sure like who he was. And then for a couple of weeks, like he was reaching out to me like almost daily, you know, really struggling, had lots of check-ins in between the sessions. And then after his third session, he had a huge breakthrough and realized that his dad had killed himself right after his mom had remarried, and that he was unconsciously holding on to this karmic pattern of his dad's, and how he nearly died. He thought he was going to die because this woman didn't love him, but he like broke through this pattern and he didn't kill himself, and he started feeling better, and he realized that like he is not going to continue to live out his dad's karmic legacy of this, like, if she doesn't love me, I'm dead, you know. And his dad didn't make it. His dad killed himself. So it was just this huge growth for this person to realize that actually I'm going to make it through this. Yes, she rejected me and I'm going to survive. And after that, he is a different person now. Like, he's happy. I saw him at the gym the other day. We said hi. Like, he's social. He's participating in class. He's being present for his friends. It's incredible.
Wow.
Thank
you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
What did you say?
Thanks a lot for sharing, I think Kyle said, and that's really huge.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's got to feel really good to see that kind of thing in person.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible. It fuels my work. That's why I risk my life, because, you know, people transform. So, of course.
Yeah, hopefully only for a few more years, right?
Right, yeah, definitely.
So
with the results that they're having, it's definitely a couple of years.
How long have you been doing this work?
I celebrated 1 year this January.
Fantastic.
So a little over a year, I mean.
That's awesome. How long do you usually set aside for a booster or non-boosted session? What does the day look like? Like, what does your day look like? Do you get in there like a couple hours beforehand and hang out for like 3 hours after or something like that? Or
I mean, the whole day is like in ceremony. So I wake up and I know someone's coming, and I always cleanse my house before and after. And it varies the length, you know. Some people are done in like 5 or 6 hours. Some people need 8 or 9 if they have a huge opening and they don't want to, I call it, they don't want to leave the womb, because why would you? And yeah, so they want to stay longer. But I don't let anyone leave before they're ready.
Cool. Do you have any kind of special instructions for them in terms of like aftercare? Yeah,
I always tell them not to have anything the next day, that they'll need to rest and integrate, and because you don't want to be going to work and like going back into the rat race after this experience. And yeah, I have them, if they want to be with a friend, I usually recommend like having either their partner or like a good friend pick them up and spend the night with them and make them dinner. You know, they don't want to, like, they're not going to be wanting to make dinner or like take care of themselves, so someone to take care of them. But some people prefer to be by themselves, and I let that happen too. You know, it's whatever people want. Everyone is so unique and so different. It's hard to just like prescribe anything to everyone. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a integration and self-care class that we teach, and we've decided to take the approach of saying, here's 20 to 30 tools you can use, and take your pick.
Right.
Yeah. That's exactly it. The people are so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where education system fails, because it's like, how can you assume that everyone is into the same thing? It's about time we started individualizing, life for people.
Right. When you were working with that client and that difficult experience started to arise, what type of approach did you use? Like, how do you work with difficult experiences?
I mean, the most important thing is I stay grounded in myself. I find that I'm grounded in myself, and I have this trust that that nothing bad is happening, you know, like I know that nothing bad is happening unless something bad is happening, which it never has. So I have this trust and I have this ground in myself that I never slip into fear, and I never let the client trigger me into, you know, becoming afraid of whatever they're going through. So that's probably the most important thing I do. And then, I don't know, just being present, helping them to guide through it, reflecting, you know, if they're asking me, oh, like, are you scared? Are you scared? Or like, am I being too much? Am I being too scary? Always reflecting, like, unconditional love, like, no, like, you're okay. Are you scared? Like, what's going on? What are you seeing? You know, let's, you know, and if it's too much, encouraging them to pull out of it, you know, like, we don't need to go into the deepest, scariest places all in this one session, you know,
right.
Like, take a little bit of time and just smell the lavender and just touch the blanket and like be here and have a little, you know, thing to color. Yeah. And there's a guide. People know where they need to go, you know.
Right. And when you're planning these sessions, was there any framework to work with? Like, did you look at any of the, like, the MAPS manual for the MDMA, or is it a lot based off of like your intuition and your previous experiences of knowing maybe what you needed in that time?
I mean, yeah, I looked at the MAPS protocol for sure. I read through that, and I've taken a lot of stuff from that. And also, like, a lot of it came from, my own therapy with MDMA and my mentor who taught me, like, everything that I know. And now I'm meeting more people and reading more and just gathering ideas and talking to people, and I'm constantly learning and constantly growing and constantly changing my protocol. And but yeah, mostly intuitive, you know, whenever clients, you just know, you get guidance when you're in that space.
And do you incorporate music into the session?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
How do you structure the music? Like, or what do you try to shoot for in terms of like types or trajectory of the playlist or anything like that?
Well, in the first hour, I have just like some pretty non-evocative, just like ambient sounds, kind of like oming and just, you know, cosmic sounds that aren't gonna like, you know, push people one way or the other, either into the heavens or to the hell. And then after that first hour, once they've come up and after they take the booster, if they're going to take it, then I'll turn on the more evocative music. And that's like made to bring them into like all kinds of different emotional states, all kinds of different states of consciousness. So some of them are really dark and scary and like dreary. And then they'll come out and burst through like heavenly realms, you know, of like lightness and beauty, and then go back into the scary realms. And then, you know, so there's probably like 2 or 3 hours of that kind of music. And then at the end, once they're coming down and just like coming back into themselves and into this world, then I'll play maybe some things with words, some like inspiring, you know, things that I really like, or I feel like they would be moved by, or just more like less rigid afterwards. And if they want to hear a song or something like that, I'll play that then.
Cool. And how did you learn how to put that, like, kind of the playlist together? Was it through, again, your own experience with a therapist and they kind of coach you on how to do that, or again with intuition?
Both. Like, my mentor has sent me a bunch of music. I also inherited a bunch of custom-made journey music from a program I did a while back, and I've been using that since then because I really like that music. And my partner does like improvisational music, and he contributes some of it.
Cool. Yeah, I was just asking because Joe and I are, we facilitate breathwork workshops, and music is a big part of that. And, you know, there's some sort of kind of theory on how to put a playlist together. So it's always interesting to hear other people's views on that and how they've learned.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's constant. I'm constantly discovering new music. There's so much out there. It's incredible.
So how do you find the mushroom sessions different from MDMA? It's obviously a very different drug. So like the trajectory would be a little different, the content and like the type of experience would be a little different. What do you notice?
Oh yeah, it's way deeper. So, with MDMA, it's sort of like I've heard it called an inviting dance partner. It sort of like offers you its hand, and you can take it and look at the stuff you're avoiding, or you can choose not to, and you have a choice. With mushrooms, you don't have a choice. So everything that you're trying not to, everything in your unconscious that you're running from, you're going to face it. So, it's a lot more raw, a lot more, it's deeper. It's deeper work. You'll get into more, scary places and but also more really blissful places and connection with the cosmos and,
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot more out of control and it's a lot more unpredictable. I take a way bigger risk by giving someone psilocybin because, they could freak out.
Right.
Which
Would
on
you give
MDMA is not as much of a chance.
Yeah, if somebody comes in your practice with like a lot of trauma, would you suggest MDMA first instead of giving them psilocybin?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I would never give someone psilocybin to start off.
Cool.
No way. Because I want to get a feeling for them, how they are in an altered state. I don't want to give them a psychedelic and then find out.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think sometimes that comes up too when people are asking about like the PTSD studies with MAPS and why they've chose MDMA. And I mean, that's always my answer too, is like, MDMA is a little bit more gentle. It's not going to just throw you into the abyss. And especially if you're coming with a lot of trauma or PTSD, I mean, that could probably be pretty frightening if you take a decent dose of psilocybin and you end up in a really weird place.
It could literally drive people psychotic if they're not like, if you don't have an ego before you break your ego, like that's dangerous, So MDMA helps with like healing those traumas, facing those traumas, moving through it and integrating them in a healthy, holistic way. And then you can go deeper with psilocybin. Like, okay, like what's next? Once like the childhood traumas are, at least they're aware of them,
Yeah, my kind of operating theory is that as long as you give these things enough time for integration at the end of the session, it'll typically go okay. It's pretty rare to have like a very bad outcome, like very rare.
No, yeah.
And it's nothing that time really won't chill out. Like it might be like by the book, it would look psychotic, but realistically, it's just, them working it out.
Totally.
The healing response not looking too awesome. Do you notice any difference therapeutically with mushrooms and LSD? So how the healing trajectory presents itself in the session, or phenomena that's different, or aesthetic difference from the patient's point of view? With
mushrooms and LSD, there's a lot less words.
Right.
So there's not as much words spoken in the session. There's not as much like to say afterwards. More like this experience of awe and amazement and like, oh wow, like a lot of things come making full circle, and then I think the integration of psilocybin and LSD takes a couple weeks, maybe MDMA takes a week, but with that kind of stuff, it's, you're experiencing, wow, like I am God, like I am the creator of my life. I manifest this reality. So it takes a little bit longer to integrate actually what that means and how people can start making the connection. Wow, I'm thinking this thought. And if I'm thinking a positive thought, the world around me is like blooming. And then if I'm down in the dumps, everything around me turns gray. Like, that's on LSD, but it's also in real life. It's just less obvious. It's more subtle in real life. But it's that, getting the clear on your manifestation ability and what kind of world and what kind of life you want to manifest for yourself.
So we talked to Daniel McQueen from Medicinal Mindfulness a while ago, and he talked a lot about how his work relates to helping people find their life path in a sense, and where maybe they need to drop out for a year or two and go travel. And he has the perspective that if you make that decision quickly, that's kind of okay. In our breathwork world, we kind of say back off for a little bit. Let's not do anything huge for a few months, perhaps. Don't get a divorce. Don't quit your job right away. Maybe, simmer with it for a
Right.
little bit longer because you went through something really intense. How do you relate to that kind of thought?
I guess I'll start off by saying I can't control anyone. So what I say, I have no idea what can heal someone. I have no idea what is right for someone. So if they need to go and drop their wife and their whatever and go travel in Jamaica or whatever, if that's what their highest purpose is, then who am I to stop them? And I would say that from talking to many people and from my own personal experience, it's definitely a wise choice to let those big ideas have a couple months to simmer and, alchemize into whatever gift that they need to, bring. And maybe that means you need to go and travel. And maybe that means you can see your home and your direct life right now as the place where you can create this alchemical transformation. Because what the concern I have with just running off and traveling is that just another avoidance? Because that's very much our culture. It's just it's tough here, let's run off and do something. It's going to be easier there. But what we find when we get there is that our issues are with us and we're still struggling with the same shit. And yes, we can be here, we can be in Jamaica, but either way, the stuff that we're trying to run from is going to follow us no matter where we are.
Always chasing the setting sun. There's a Mayan shaman, Martin Practel. He talks about how the hungry ghosts just keep chasing us no matter where you are. You can keep running, but they're still going to follow you.
Yeah, exactly. I love Martin.
Pretty regular kind of metaphor in the AA world as well, right? Just relocating. It's always the same problems for sure.
Yeah, totally. So it's I don't know. All I say is that the problems aren't going to go away if you go to Bali.
I mean, it might be nice for a month, but yeah, if you're going to settle down, things are...
You will feel like you are better. Yeah, you'll feel temporarily I found relief, I'm in this heavenly beach. And then, the next person breaks up with you or whatever, and you're just fuck this beach. Get me out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how often do you do this work? Do you have a private practice and do counseling and then just take on a few of these clients to do medicine work with?
Yeah, I mean, I have, I usually do about 10 sessions a week. Yeah, right. 2 sessions a week with medicine. Yeah, I do. That's my limit right now. That's what I've found. I can do and still I see some clients through Skype. I have a few just regular in-person clients, and the way it works is I kind of get waves. I'll get a wave of 5 people who get referred, and then they go through their cycle of about 3 sessions, and then they'll finish, and then I'll get a new wave of people that I'll start with, and it's kind of like that.
Cool.
But yeah, I won't schedule more than 2 sessions a week at this point, just because it's too exhausting for me. And yep.
Do you maintain a kind of talk therapy practice or anything like that?
I don't. Well, I guess you can call it talk therapy, but it's not talk focused. It's more somatic and emotional focused. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Do you use somatic techniques in your practice?
Yeah, I do somatic experiencing and a lot of voice work and
awesome.
Just encouraging people to start living in their bodies, using their voices to heal themselves. And yeah, the voice is incredibly powerful, I found.
Kyle's currently in a master's program for somatic psychology at Prescott.
Oh, awesome.
So breathwork
Very
is a
good.
somatic technique, right? So kind of a automatic win there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's
but I'm
interesting
always
with voice.
looking for.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for other training opportunities. Somatic experiencing sounds really awesome. I'm really interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's pretty amazing for trauma release, especially when people are in because there's the fight or flight trauma, but if people have like chronic childhood or like PTSD, like from veteran wars, then they go into the freeze response, which is like the way bottom of the trauma wave, which is like really hard to get people out of that trauma response, out of freeze without medicine. Like, I don't know how people do it otherwise. But somatic experiencing is one of those ways. Medicine just happens to be really helpful.
Yeah. Do you incorporate any somatic techniques during the sessions? Any body work or anything like that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I do a lot of, well, actually it depends on the person, but I have done with some people a lot of massage and body work, and because it's so effective when people are, they have a thought and they have an impulse to say it, and then they judge themselves and they pull that thought back in and they don't let themselves express it. It's incredible. Like the jaw will get tight almost instantly and they'll start complaining like, my jaw is tight. And then, and I'll encourage them to voice whatever they suppressed. And once they voice it, like they can actually release that pain. And sometimes I'll help people by massaging their jaw and like having them scream and yell and like express the pain of the massage and the pain that they are holding in their jaw through their voice. And that way, that jaw tension starts to become conscious. So now, like moving forward, when they're blocking their expression, when they have an impulse again to say something, maybe at work or whatever, and they pull it back in, it's never going to be unconscious again. Now they're going to be attuned to their jaw and notice every time they stop themselves from expressing. So that's how massage helps to make it conscious. And a lot of us store like a lot of fear and things in our hips. So like by working the hips and making that pain conscious, people start to like be aware, oh wow, like my hip is tightening. Am I not feeling safe? Am I not feeling like, can be myself? Like what is it? They can start to dive deeper into their process because they're more aware of the unconscious or previously unconscious messages the body was sending. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's kind of like you're giving them some tools, like a kind of mindfulness, somatic mindfulness, for lack of a better word. And
kind of like that.
Yeah, they've got their own little toolkit that you're providing them that they can go back to life with, and that's huge, very valuable.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like I always tell people, the session is not the cure. Like I'm not going to cure you. You're curing you. Like you can come in this session and you can have an experience, but if you don't integrate anything and you don't like make changes in your life, you're not going to feel better. That's why I'm also like picky with who I work with, because if the people aren't ready to start making these changes, and they're big changes for some people, then like I know it won't work. Because people have to be ready. They have to be in a place where they're like, I feel horrible. Like I want to make a difference. Like I'm done with this,
Right. Yeah, that's really smart. I think I probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but I had a student in one of my classes, and they were from Brazil, and they were part of some of the ayahuasca communities down there, and they were saying like, in their community, they always said like, the real work begins after the medicine experience. Like what you see there is great, but the large percentage of your work is afterwards and what you do with that. Do you do anything particular for integration, like follow up or I don't know, any techniques?
Definitely. I don't know that techniques really, but I definitely have people come and meet with me. I mean, if they want to, I encourage at least one integration session. That's like my prescription, you can say. But, like with that guy who was really struggling, I was available, like, often. by text almost every day, like phone call every other day. You know, he came and visited me and saw me like every 3 days or so. And I was there and available because the way I see it is I'm facilitating these huge experiences for people. And it's my responsibility to offer integration and offer support. And if they're having a hard time, I want to be available. And I don't ever feel like I'm being taken advantage of or something.
Right. Yeah. If you're willing to open somebody up, you should be willing to be there through their whole experience, right?
Totally. Yeah. It's way different than like 1 hour counseling. Like, I'm not seeing you 1 hour a week. Like, that's totally different relationship. Like, this is a way deeper relationship, and I have a way bigger responsibility to people because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you see this stuff going? Like, do you see more and more underground folks hitting, offering their services, or do you think it'll really take off once legalization happens, or after we keep getting more positive news stories, or what are you seeing for the future?
I mean, in the next couple of years, for sure. I think it's more of like the silent revolution, right? It's not going to be like publicized. It's not going to be super open and like flags waving. It's going to be more and more people like seeking help and learning how to do this work and hopefully working as underground therapists. But the worry with that is like ethics and how,
right.
You know, I've already heard about people being unethical and, you know, that kind of stuff. And that breaks my heart because, you know, like I do this, like several people I know do this because this is like, you know, the healing work of the future. And like, we want to help people. And some people are doing this for money or fame or like whatever. And it's just ridiculous because, you know, the ego's got to get in the way, of course. But I don't know. Right. You know, I trust like with this work, we're raising the consciousness. People are healing themselves. They're healing each other. They're feeling better. They're engaging with their life in a way that they haven't before. And it's empowering, you know, it creates a change in people that is like allowing them to get off of their antidepressants, get off of their anti-anxieties, you know, reconnect with their partners, reconnect with the pleasure of life. And once people taste that victory and taste that freedom, there's no going back from that. You know, you can't unlearn that. You can't disempower someone after that. So it's sort of like a ripple effect. Because like, you know, I started working with kind of close friends, and then they felt better, and all of their friends are like, what are you doing? Why do you feel better? And they're like, oh, like this thing. And so like, it's like, everyone's like, oh, I want that.
Right.
And it's hard work. Like, as we all know, it's not like, oh, like snap my fingers, like MDMA is fixed. I'm fixed, you know, but it's definitely like a tool that can create great empowerment on the human level.
Yeah. That kind of narrative reminded me of, somebody that gave a talk at Horizons a few years ago. They were doing MDMA coaching and relationship work. And that's what they were saying. They're like, you know, you start changing and then your friends start noticing a difference and your family starts noticing a difference. And they're like, what's going on here? Like, and then they just like somehow get interested in it. So yeah, it's cool. I'm curious too, if you have any like concerns about doing any of this work.
Like legally?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, not really, honestly. The way my mentor is sort of like, the way he framed it to me is that we're working for the consciousness. Like, we're working for the expansion of consciousness. We're helping people to, you know, we're helping the cosmos to expand, to learn about itself, for humans to evolve and heal, you know. So there's an element of protection by the cosmos. Something like, you know, like the police can't find it because it's protected, because it's helping so many people. And that's why, you know, he's been working since the 70s doing this work. There's so many people doing this work, and we're protected because this work needs to happen for the evolution of humanity and for people's healing. And, you know, I take notes on every client I see, and I have a, you know, really rigid, like, notebook where I keep track of everything I do. And if anything, God forbid, ever did happen, you know, I would get a lawyer, and I would fight for it, because ethically I feel like I'm doing the best thing I can be doing, because I'm helping people to feel better. And why would I, you know, deny people the greatest, like, tool that we have available to us that we know helps? And so, yeah, it's illegal right now, but that's not my problem. I'm here to help people, you know, and this is the best tool that I have to help people. So I'm going to use the best tool that I have.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, part of that screening really helps too. You know, I was just thinking, somebody has a bad experience, they freak out, and then they start projecting like they had a bad experience because of you. And then they start, you know, maybe they go tell somebody. But yeah, I guess that's probably why you screen people. So you minimize that risk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that does come up, you know, projection happens in session all the time, and we work through it in the moment, you know, and it's never about me.
Right.
It's always about them.
Right.
So it's like, if you're a congruent therapist and you know how to pick up on that, you have no issues.
Right.
We're at about an hour. Is there anything you might want to throw out there as like a side note or end note to what we've talked about so far?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a world of fear right now. You know, we come into this world, we're born, and like the only way we learn how to relate to people is through pain and fear. And what we're doing with this work is basically reprogramming the brain from fear back to love. And people are reconnecting with their child state. They're reconnecting with the essence that they truly are. And it's a beautiful thing. We can have a world where people love each other and love themselves. And I'm excited for the future of this incredible work.
Cool. Well, we really appreciate your time, and I hope to maybe talk to you again in a couple of years through Riley. Or after legalization, we can talk in person.
Right?
Yeah, can't wait.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, no problem. Our pleasure. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It was really fun to record with Selena. She really knows a lot about this whole process. And, you know, after a couple more years, she's probably going to be pretty prolific in this field. These underground people carry a lot of wisdom and experience with working with this stuff. And it's really a game changer to have these people out there taking these risks outside of the strict MAPS model. I know there's some legal issues with it, and it could put our hopes and dreams at risk, but for the most part, I think it is worth it because it helps so many people. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, it's springtime, and it's festival season. So what better way to really help you and your friends be safer by getting educated on psychedelics? More so than you already are. I'm sure plenty of you have lots of experience, but it's always worth getting more educated so you and your friends can be safer out there and have a better time, and no one getting arrested or put in the hospital. Yeah, those are the things we want to avoid. Have the best possible time, most possible awesome experience there, and to be safe. Why not? So check us out, psychedelicstoday.teachable.com. And you could reach out to us if you have questions about it at psychedelicstoday@gmail.com. Hope you all have a good one. If you guys are in Oakland for the Psychedelic Science Conference, hit us up. We're going to be floating around. You can find our pictures on the website, and hopefully find us in the crowd. We'll probably have our new logo out there. So you should be able to find us. Anyway, have a great one. Thanks for tuning in again. Bye-bye.